The views and opinions expressed on this station do not reflect the owners, management, staff, clients, or partners. Medical House presents Bermuda's most viewed and listened to talk show. The Daily Hour starts now.
It's Happy Friday, the 23rd day of October. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House and Lindos. I'm Jamal Hartman, along with Carla Zool. Thanks for making us part of your daily routine. If you haven't already, share the link, start a watch party, just get the conversation out there to your network. Today is probably one you definitely don't want to miss. It's a good one. We have the head of the civil service, Dr. Derrick Binns, stopping by. And the daily play is going to be a where is it? I have all the confidence in the world that Carla will get this, but if she doesn't, just be on standby. All right. But let's get started. We have a lot to get to today. So before I even start, you're going to want to share the fun. So make sure I give you, no, you've had time to share the link, start a watch party. Let's go. The big talk overnight is the BTA appointment of sitting MP Wayne Keynes as the chair of the organization. And there's a few things that are wrong with this appointment. And surprisingly, to many that may listen to me, I don't think the biggest issue is that he's been appointed. I say that because a lot of people don't understand that the chairman is not the CEO. That's where I think we're going wrong. The chairman is not the CEO. The chairman is there to help develop strategy, hold them accountable, and just keep things in order, not run day-to-day operations. So from that standpoint, people just need to understand and be clear that there is a big difference between the CEO and chairman. The next thing is, take your political thoughts, biases, and put them to the side. Because if you have a problem that the premier has put a sitting MP and you're saying that, it was supposed to be apolitical. Number one, the first chairman of that organization was a former UBP tourism minister. So do not tell me and the Bermudian people that this is a political position. This is a politician and it's supposed to be apolitical. The first chairman was appointed by a politician. The first chairman is a former politician.
Mr. Dudwell, right?
Correct. David Dudwell, the senior one, the older one. So I think those arguments are flawed when it comes to the appointment of MP Keynes as the chairperson of this government quengo, as they say. One of the third problem, well, I'm not even going to number them because I may get lost. Another issue, apolitical, you claim. You claim that this organization should be free of politics. I may agree with you on that. But if you're screaming and crying for this organization to be free of politics, where is your voice when it comes to that organization, which was supposedly, after 3 years, going to be self-funded? Yeah. So if we're gonna, now you all know I'm not the biggest fan of MP Keynes, but what I try to do on this show is what I try to do in life, and that's be fair. And I'm not one to say, oh well, the other guys did it, so it's okay if they. No, that's not even the case here. What I'm trying to do is to get people to stop letting their biases dictate reality. At the end of the day, if we didn't have a problem with it being political back then, we shouldn't have a problem with it being political now. Bottom line. the self-funding, as long as they're using taxpayers' dollars to make this organization go, then it's pretty much a political organization because you're receiving the funding from the elected government. No. So I just hope that adds clarity, a bit of clarity around the appointment of MP Keynes, and hopefully people understand the difference between the chair and the CEO.
But is that the issue, though?
Which part?
Well, from a layman's perspective, because I don't do the whole deep political thing, but it seems like Premier Burt is again rewarding, not my word, quote unquote, bad behavior. So I think it's the principle of it that are annoying some people as well, because Mr. Keynes and Mr. De Silva stepped away because of the whole thing with the party, the celebration, whatever it was, and then now he's being given this position. Draw a correlation to 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when it was the same thing with Mr. Commission. So I've seen social media feedback speak to that. It's like, is there anyone else? Is there no other talent? Because in my opinion, if you're just going to put these people back into positions, notable positions, then you may as well have rejected their resignations in the beginning.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think one of the challenges with you make a great point. Is Bermuda at a deficit for talent? Is Bermuda at a deficit for talent? Because when you see these people being put right back in front of you, you kind of have to start to wonder, well, I know plenty of Bermudians who could have done that. Why this person? But I think if we're all honest, we understand this is politics. David Burt is a premier, and he's a very smart guy, like him or not. And he understands that in 2 years, there's going to be a leadership challenge. And he understands that he needs to keep certain people around him. This is not about us. This isn't about the Bermudian people. This is about individuals. This is about what they believe is best for them first. Then let's just be real. This is not about Bermuda and the Bermudian people. When it comes to keeping people happy and appointing people, I don't think David Burt as premier thought that Ralph Commission as the Senate lead and a minister of whatever he was, community affairs and sports, I don't think he believes that's the best person for the job. I truly believe he thought that was probably in his best interest going forward, just like the appointment of MP Keynes was probably in his best interest. This is politics. And this is why I tell people all the time, people love to talk about what's going on in the U.S. between the two elderly guys running for president. They were in some argument last night. I don't know if you saw it. But whether we're talking about that or bringing it back home to Bermuda or even Boris Kojo, not Boris Kojo, what's the guy? Johnson. Guy. Sorry, Boris Kojo. Yeah, even when you're talking about them, it's like, it's a game to these people. And it's almost like the people are on the ornaments on the checkerboard. That's it. It's fascinating.
Let me ask your opinion. Sorry, do you think that you're gonna get the same sort of lashback as was for Mr. Commission?
Well, let me answer this, and I'll answer that. So the chairman is appointed by the tourism minister. Correct. Yes, so it's not apolitical. I don't think it's going to get the same reaction. And I think so. The reason that I think it's going to get a different reaction is because Mr. Commission was accused of something. And although Mr. Keynes wasn't accused, people witnessed it. He was, probably not the smartest by putting it up there. But I think a huge difference, and this should not matter. This is not me. This is not my opinion, but this is just our reality, and it needs to change. But when people soak themselves so much up into the community, they get certain passes. I don't think that Earl Commission has the social and community relationships that Mr. Keynes does. So I don't think you're going to get letters from social justice. I could be wrong, right? I could be wrong, but I don't think you're going to get the letters from these the fringe groups. Like, I don't think you're going to get the same reaction from our audience or people on Twitter, because what Mr. Keynes has done in the past may get him a pass in terms of being in this position. Furthermore, I think that Mr. Commission was put in probably a higher position than the chairmanship. Charles Jaffa's BTA board chairmanship to cabinet minister. So Terry Too Cool says, like, is the pool for the chairman only within government or just his choice? No, it could have been anyone. It could have been anyone. It could have been you. It could have been Carla. It could have been me. But again, like I said, David Burt is a smart premier, and I think he is showing up to keep people happy. I mean, think about it. He didn't just remove Neville Tyrrell and Levita Fogo. He gave them positions. This is about keeping enough people happy to make sure that you solidify your position. At least that's how it comes across. So let's not be mistaken. Now, let me just say on MP Keynes, and I want to be clear when I say this, because many people may not know this, but MP Keynes, when he was one of the finalists for that CEO job of the BTA, should have been given that position. Not because he's MP Keynes, but because he was probably the best person for the job. And this is why I say this. MP Keynes, whether you like him or not, you really have to put your feelings aside. He was probably one of the best CEOs in terms of showmanship. When it came to, you saw the company he worked for everywhere. It changed the way that local companies done marketing. So I believe he would have added value from a professional perspective in the light of company. Now, this has nothing to do with personality. This is just an idea. Yeah. So I'm interested to see, because now when we speak about what the chairman of the BTA does, again, it's not the CEO, it's the chairman. I'm interested to see a few things. Does Glenn Jones, who, by the way, did you see his face in the picture?
Everybody's talking about that.
Then try to justify it, said I was smiling. Nah, bro. Nah, we saw you, bro.
That was a cringe.
we saw you, Glenn Jones. We get you. We get you, bro. He's probably like, all right, exit plan, get ready. But no, I think even in Glenn Jones' defense, Glenn Jones has been the acting CEO. He's been the acting CEO for what, 7 months now? And let's be honest, like him or not, he has been up against it. I mean, there's no flights going to Bermuda, right? I feel from a Bermuda tourism perspective, you can only go up from here, but it's going to take the right people in the right positions. And I've been saying that for ages. I think that the One Bermuda Alliance, as I stated last night, I think the One Bermuda Alliance definitely created this monster, because if it was apolitical, the late Sean Crocker would not have appointed the former UBP tourism minister, David Dudwell. I also want to say, someone brought it to my attention that, and this is not an accusation I'm making against the Premier David Burt, but he seems to not appoint a lot of women. Now, I'll say this much. We don't know if he asked women and they say no. So I think we need to be careful with that. But his appointments are very, very interesting, and there seems to be a pattern. Talent Clark says, our guest from yesterday, if you haven't seen that episode, check it out, folks. I'm interested to see other appointments. I agree. I agree. Elizabeth says Wayne Keynes is about to make the BTA work. That's for sure. Well, this is the key for the chairperson as well, and people need not forget this. The chairperson is there to hold the workers accountable. And I do believe that Wayne Keynes can hold the workers accountable. Now, here's the play right here. Don't forget who the tourism minister is. So you have Premier David Burt, Wayne Keynes, and now looks like they have to appoint a C-suite. This is going to get interesting. The only thing I would say as far as the BTA is I feel for Bermuda. I feel for Bermuda tourism, because it's going to be a long road back. I think the expectations that Bermudians have for tourism need to be readjusted. It's not going to be easy. And so even when they bring on the people they want, you're going to need to give them the same time that you gave Mr. Henberry and his crew. Because if you remember, their first year was one of the worst years in the history of Bermuda tourism. So, what I'm going to say is what I said about the election. Get behind this new board. I hope that some of the new appointments reflect intelligent, young Bermudians and even young Bermudian women. We have to have a balance in there. And I hope they're able to put the right people in the right positions. That's my hope. But realistically, the pressure is on for them to deliver. They now have it. You have two OBA people left on the board, two OBA people left in the C-suite. Get rid of them, and you got that clean slate to work from. I say this on behalf of every Bermudian that wants to see Bermuda tourism do well. No more excuses. It's time to get to work. No more bickering, no more crying, no more excuses. It's time for results. Carla, you ready for the news?
Yes, sir.
All righty. We got to get to this debate last night. I mean, there's elderly guys, man. I mean,
maybe she would stop calling them that.
Oh, that too grumpy old man. I mean, you should have seen him. Shit.
A magistrate yesterday warned about the seriousness of signing bail for others after a man who put up as security for a female jewelry thief who fled abroad and avoided justice for 6 years. Magistrates Court heard that Carlton De Silva failed to keep track of Terry Rogers, who also appeared in court. Senior Magistrate One Wolf said that people had lost thousands of dollars because they did not understand the responsibility that came with the bail guarantee. He added, "You can't go around signing bail for people you don't know and for offenses you don't know about." Mr. Wolf was speaking after Mr. De Silva, 70, escaped a potential $5,000 fine after he signed bail for Ms. Rogers, 58, and failed to make sure that she appeared in court. In 2013, she pleaded guilty to the theft of over $26,000 worth of silver cutlery and $22,000 worth of gold jewelry the year before from clients while she was employed as a housekeeper. Autism charity Tomorrow's Voices is to mark its 13th anniversary by producing custom-made face masks. The Early Intervention Center launched its Mask Up in honor of autism fundraiser to promote its work and promote mask use to cut down the spread of COVID-19. Thea Furbett, the co-founder and board chairwoman of the charity, said, "Our custom designed Tomorrow's Voices mask will make a great opportunity will be a great way for companies, families, and friends to support this milestone 13th year and raise funds for Tomorrow's Voices. This fundraiser will also be the launch for showcasing some of our autism awareness line of products, and we encourage the community to look out for other products in the near future." Both stories are courtesy of the Royal Gazette. In news out of the UK, BBC.com reporting more than 200 children's writers have urged the government to ensure no child goes hungry this winter as the argument over free school meals continues. Child's laureate Cressida Cowell, David Baddiel, and Frank Cottrell Boyce are among those who have signed a letter calling for official financial help. They say children should not have to rely on potluck charity. Ministers say an extra £9 billion has been put into welfare, and the school meal policy will be kept under review. On Wednesday, MPs voted against a Labour call to make free school meals available outside of term time for the next 6 months, including over Christmas and Easter holidays. But football Marcus Rashford, who forced a government U-turn on free school meal vouchers for eligible pupils over the summer holidays, is keeping pressure on the government to go further. Jamal, today is October 23rd. Do you know what this day is just for us?
I actually don't, Carla. You're going to help me, though.
Today is Talk Show Host Day, and it's celebrated ironic on Johnny Carson's birthday, commemorating one of the most iconic figures of TV talk show history. His career started in 1950 when he first found a place on The Tonight Show and was the beginning of a legacy that would carry on for another 42 years. How can you celebrate Talk Show Host Day? You already are, viewers and listeners, and we thank you for tuning into the Daily Hour. Turning to weather with sunny breaks and risk of showers, Bermuda's high today is expected to be 80, while it's expected to be 79 in Huntsville, Alabama, and 59 in London, UK. Don't forget, Medical House is your number one source of PPE supplies, masks, face shields, disinfectants, sanitizers, glove gowns, no-touch thermometers, and so much more at the cheapest prices. Visit Medical House today at 22 Millreach Lane in Pembroke. And don't forget, get your weekend started with Juggling Jason and the Office Workout on the 4100 radio from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Atlantic time this and every Friday. That's your Daily Hour news break.
All right, and just a plug as well. Delray Rollins will be on Pure Sports Radio with Larry Marshall Jr. 8 p.m. Bermuda time on the 4100 radio. Pure Sports Radio talks groups this weekend. So Delray Rollins, another fantastic young cricketer. We did have Kamal Levrock on previously, and now Delray will be joining us. I remember both of these young fellas up Police Club when I was younger, carrying around ball and bat. So it's fantastic to see them, executing as adults in what they were always passionate and love to do. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with the head of the public service, Dr. Derrick Binns, for a conversation. Don't miss it.
Good day, Medical House, Doris speaking. Can I help you?
Medical House is Bermuda's leading one-stop shop for healthcare.
Medical House is a great resource for Lefroy. The service is excellent.
Medical House is best known for its uniforms and footwear. It has hundreds of styles of scrubs and nurses' uniforms for health professionals. Bermuda's top doctors, dentists, care homes, and the hospital choose Medical House for a wide range of products. These same professional quality products are available to you for home health care.
The biggest reason to come see us is that we specialize in these areas and the education and knowledge that we provide.
Medical House is on Millreach Lane in Pembroke, where there is private parking right outside the door. Call or visit Medical House today.
This month, we're featuring Evian Natural Spring Water, brought to us by John Barrett & Son. Evian water is among the best-known bottled mineral waters on the market and was one of the first, originating at sources on the south shore of Lake Geneva almost 2 centuries ago. It's good to know also that Evian has instituted extensive water management projects on 3 continents, working as the Evian Water Protection Institute to help address one of the world's major ongoing issues: access to safe, abundant water for all. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
All right, and welcome back to the big show. Carla Zul, myself, Jamal Hartman. This show is brought to you by Lindo's Medical House, and also big thanks to Lamerne Woods at Crimson Multimedia, folks at Channel 82, making this available for those who don't maybe know how to operate the internet or don't have internet access, but have cable Channel 82 on one. So thank you all. Don't forget, like I said, this after this show, you can tune into the 4100 radio, as Carla mentioned, for Juggling Jason to get ready for the weekend. And then on Sunday evening, one of Bermuda's finest young athletes, Delray Rollins, will be on Pure Sports Radio with Larry Marshall Jr. Without further ado, though, let's bring in today's guest, Dr. Derrick Binns, who is the head of the civil service. Let's say, good morning, Dr. Binns. How are you?
Doing well. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come on and join us, but let's get right to it. Just explain for some people who may not know. People obviously have seen many reports, and obviously with social media, many things written about civil service and civil servants over the years, but what exactly is the role of the public service?
The public service is the engine, the machinery that enables the government of the day's agenda to be put into place. Every government comes in with an agenda, a platform, a program that they wish to implement. the elected government is responsible for articulating a policy position, and it is up to the public officers then to do all of the work necessary behind the scenes to enable that work to come to fruition. So, for example, if the government wishes to say, introduce a new program, let's take a very common, a very new one right now, the unemployment benefit. It takes civil servants to actually develop the program, to write the policy that supports that program. If there's legislation that's required to make that happen, to draft the legislation, to process the checks, to ensure that the money is distributed. So all of the work that goes on behind the scenes to enable a government initiative to take fruition is done by a public officer.
Interesting. Got you. So, okay, there are permanent secretaries, right?
Yes.
Who are right below the appointed ministers. You
Yes.
mentioned help and start, but what is their role in terms of, because I mean, people speak about it all the time, and then you see on the political side, and I don't want to say throwing on the bus, but when things are going good, you don't even hear a name of the public service workers or particularly the permanent secretary. But obviously, when things are not going as good, you may hear their name or find out who they are, or that a permanent secretary exists. So what is the role of the permanent secretary? Is it to advise? Is it to drive policy and legislation? What does that position actually do?
Sure. The permanent secretary is the key support to the minister. They are the minister's primary policy advisor. They are the minister's support right hand. They are the ones who understand the running of the government, and they're the ones who can advise the minister on the best way to achieve that minister's policy initiative. They're also the ones who is responsible for ensuring that that machinery of government is all brought together, coordinated to help deliver the minister's agenda. So each permanent secretary has a number of departments for which they are responsible. Now, any initiative may cross multiple departments, it may cross multiple ministries, or it just may reside within one department. But it's a permanent secretary's job to ensure that all of the resources of the government are brought to bear to achieve the government's political agenda. And their responsibility typically spans across a ministry, which is comprised of multiple departments, and those departments each have a specific deliverable of services, but they also may be required to develop new programs and new services. So they're essentially the policy advisor and the chief operating officer to make sure that it all gets done.
Got it. Makes sense. I'm learning too. Excuse me. Sorry. There was some reassignments at the cabinet secretary level recently, and just explain to me, because I read it over and over, why is it normal for ministries to have a permanent secretary and a chief strategy officer? Because the Ministry of Health in particular had a chief strategy officer, but they also had an acting permanent secretary. Why do certain ministries require, obviously we have the pandemic, is it something just because of the pandemic? Just explain that a bit for us.
Sure. That's a very good observation. We have found over the years that the workload on the permanent secretaries is almost routinely unmanageable. It's overwhelming, and it's almost too much for any one person. The Ministry of Health really brought that to the forefront in its broad scope. It wasn't so much the pandemic that caused us to relook at the structure, but the need for us to focus on public health care reform. And it was a very difficult undertaking to be able to drive that major public policy initiative while at the same time keeping the machine running. So we talked about it, and we've talked about this issue over a number of years. But with the importance of healthcare reform, it really came to the fore. And then we decided to try a new model. So it's actually a pilot model for us right now. And if this works, we may try this pilot in other ministries as well. But the rationale is that we need to do both, get the public healthcare reform moving, and at the same time keep the rest of that ministry running. And so we did create a chief strategy role to focus on the direction of the public healthcare policy reform, while having someone else act as the permanent secretary to enable us to get everything else going. And it has worked out well. And then the pandemic came, and that really showed the true value of splitting those roles, because we were then able to have more people focused on the right things to not only keep healthcare reform going, address the pandemic issues, but keep the rest of the health ministry moving as well.
Indeed.
Jamal, if I may ask a question attached to that. So, Dr. Binns, to some, when they hear that, they may hear an extra job. Does that mean that there will be restructuring so that maybe there may be jobs through attrition that won't be replaced?
We have the flexibility in the public service to reassign persons to new roles without necessarily creating a new job. So the chief strategy officer is not a new post that has been created. It is a role that we have created and assigned someone to fulfill the responsibilities of that role. The permanent secretary role is what we call a substantive post. It exists, and it is a post that requires to be filled. And we have someone who is doing another role, who is another post, acting in the permanent secretary role. So we're able to use that flexibility to get the job done. So we haven't created a new post with a new, what we call position ID and a new salary. So it's really just moving people in order to get the job done the best way possible.
So yeah, got you. Because never mind. It would almost be like saying, okay, now that threw me off. It really threw me off. So I want to understand, and just for clarity, so this new strategy officer is a new position, but no one was hired. Is what people should take away from that?
That is correct. And
right.
I would go a little more clear and say that it's a new role, because if you look on our list of positions that exist, you won't find the chief strategy officer listed with what we call a position ID number and a salary attached to it. You won't find that. So it's we said we need someone to get this job done. So we created the role, and there's nobody hired for it. We just had someone who was in one role come and do another role. Someone who's already in a substantive post, who's got a position with a salary attached to it, now carrying out different responsibilities.
I guess going back to Carla's question, though, is it seems like, and I don't want to get stuck on this, but it just seems like while another job wasn't added, it seems like another top position was added. So was another person added to that top line?
No.
No. Okay.
No. Right. So I think the distinction is between carrying out a function, getting a job done, versus bringing in somebody for a new job. Mm-hmm. And what we've done is we've just somebody that let's go right to it, the actual people involved. Jennifer Attride Sterling was the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Health. We realized that we needed to put more focused attention on the driving of healthcare reform. So we asked her to focus her attention on healthcare reform. So that we were clear on what she was doing, we said, you're going to take up the role of chief strategy officer. It's not a post, not a salary attached to it, but it's a function you will be undertaking. We had someone who was in another role in the Ministry of Health, Siobhan Washington Jones, who is the ministry controller. We said to Siobhan, rather than focus on doing the job of the controller, we want you to act in the position of permanent secretary of health and carry out the functions of the permanent secretary of health. And so no new people. The only additional cost would be an acting pay, an acting top up for Siobhan Washington Jones for doing the job of the permanent secretary, in contrast to her substantive role of controller. But no new people, and only a slight top up and acting pay.
Got it. Understood. So what's being done within the public service to address many of the challenges brought on by the COVID pandemic? And there are many.
Well, there are two major streams with regard to how we are responding to the pandemic. One is the delivery of services to the public. And that would include the development of legislation, the writing of policy, introduction of new programs so that we can keep Bermuda safe. The other stream of work that we are doing is how do we, as an operating entity, the government of Bermuda, respond to it? And examples of that would be developing the means for people to work remotely. That was a very fast, very quick response to make sure that our IT systems could support people not working at their desktops, but actually working from another location at home doing shelter in place, but still enabling the government to work. So our response was in both of those two streams, services to ensuring that the public was protected and developing everything to keep the island protected, while at the same time, the second bucket was making sure that the government could continue to work.
Dr. Binns, there have been job losses across the island. Has the public service been exempt?
The government has made a decision not to cause separations between public officers and the government, but instead they have worked with the unions to find other means to address cost savings. And the primary cost saving measure that was agreed between unions and the government was a 10% cut in salaries and overtime at straight time, as opposed to time and a half or double time. So the government has not laid people off or terminated posts or terminated people, but they have introduced those austerity measures.
Now, talking about that, in September, public service workers began the first year of the 10% cut. A few years ago, they were forced to do furlough. How much more sacrifice can public servants take, or are they expected to endure?
Well, that's not a question I'm able to answer. We know that the entire island is under pressure at the moment. There are many people who do not even have a job. There are many people who may not even be able to go back to a job they once used to have. So we are taking a sacrifice, but our sacrifice is in the context of sacrifices that are being made across the entire island. So I'm not able to say how much sacrifice the public officers are able to endure, but we recognize that we too have a role to play in helping this island recover.
Now, what do you think is the biggest misconception that the public has about public service workers?
That they're lazy and do nothing and just sit there all day. That could not be further from the truth. You can drive around in Hamilton past the government buildings on any given day and you'll see lights burning. Those lights aren't burning because people just left the lights on, because people are there working. You can see people walking out of a government building, Global House, government administration building, all hours of the night. That's not just because they're someone who was doing the cleaning job and just cleaned the building. They're public officers who are working. So everything that you see a minister do has been supported by a public officer. Every statement a minister makes, drafted by a public officer. Every pandemic press conference was organized by a public officer. The statements made, written by a public officer. Every policy with regard to COVID regulations developed by a public officer. Every regulation that was made, drafted by a public officer. The testing regimes that we go through, manned by public officers. So the myth that we sit there and do nothing is just that, a myth. There are a large number of hardworking, dedicated public officers throughout this government.
Gotcha. Let's go to some of the questions. Well, before we do that, I'm actually I saw a headline the other day, but didn't read the article. And as you were speaking, I just said, let me go and find it. And the BPSU president, Armel Thomas, on workplace bullying and harassment. And it looks like since the 2016 survey, where 48% of respondents reported to have had personally experienced bullying. In the last 12 months, in addition, 58% of respondents indicated that they had witnessed bullying and or harassment of other staff at work in the last 6 months. That wasn't part of what I wanted to chat to you about, but obviously you're here, and I just want to get your feedback on this.
Well, first, that's 2016 data. I mean, I just saw the brief headline. I didn't read the entire report, but it struck me that it was 2016 data. So my question was, why are we reporting about 2016 data now at the end of 2020? I also am aware that we did our own public service survey about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, around 2018, I believe it was, and we looked at that very issue. And the numbers were improved from those 2016 data, such that the numbers were more around 20%. And any degree of bullying and harassment is unnecessary, unwarranted, and should not happen. And so we need to address it. It did cause us some concern to see that it did exist. And we did work with our managers to address that issue. So I actually support the intent of the union to address that. And the unions would often talk about us being social partners, and we are. And this is one area where we as social partners can work together to address harassment and bullying in the workplace. There is no place for it in the workplace. And this is something that we can do together.
Indeed, Dr. Binns. Let's go to some comments we have. There was Joanne Smith says, so who is doing the other jobs such as controller, or is Miss Jones doing both?
The ministry, I cannot answer specifically because I'm not at that level of detail for each department. But just as we're able to move people into different roles, we'll do the same thing with the controller's role. So there's probably other people within the ministry headquarters serving in the finance section that will be able to step up and assist in the controller role. But naturally, in the way things always work, you don't completely relinquish every responsibility from your substantive role. And so I would expect that Ms. Washington Jones is also still assisting to some degree with the controller functions as well.
Thank you. Dr. Binns, obviously there was an election earlier this month, and it was a large majority to the already government. They extended their majority. How does such a large majority impact the job that the public service is able to do?
There really isn't a significant impact on the role that we play and the way we go about our business. It certainly has an impact for the ability of the government to press ahead with their agenda. It certainly gives the government of the day confidence that there's significant support for the issues that they put forward that they wish to do. But it doesn't really change the need for the public service to take that agenda, translate that into an operating means, and deliver programs according to it. So if the government has a 2-seat majority or 30-seat majority, our function really doesn't change that much.
Gotcha. We have a question here. I'm not sure if you have the exact number, but Kathy Brumby asks, how many staff in the public service?
And the public service as a whole is roughly 4,500.
4,500. Okay. And people keep saying civil service. What was behind the name change? What I mean, was it necessary? Just explain it.
Okay. The traditional name has always been the civil service and civil servants. Technically, civil servants are those members of the public service who are represented by the Bermuda Public Services Union. It was our view that we had to be one government, one employer, treating all of our employees in the same way and not really dividing our employees by their bargaining unit. And according to the Constitution, the term that captures all of us who work for the government is public officer. So we became the public service and public officers so that we cover all of us and not just those represented by one particular bargaining unit.
All right. Get through a few more questions. It is the most engaging talk show Bermuda has, so we must involve the audience as much as possible. Quinell Francis says it sounds top heavy. I think that was when we were talking about the chief strategy officer, and then her follow-up comment was, is that role only temporary? I believe you answered that though. And go ahead, Dr. Binns, if you want to say something.
Yeah, at the moment it is a temporary role. I would not agree that it's top heavy. It's a we like I said, we've been discussing this for a number of years and decided that given the needs of of healthcare reform, this was a necessary change in order to deliver on this important initiative. I don't think it makes us any more top heavy. It's the level of responsibility and care that's needed to deliver on the mandate of the government.
All righty. A couple more questions come in. Nikki Michelle says there are 4,500 civil servants, but what is the actual requirement in regards to bodies needed to run Bermuda? Have we done an audit?
This is a question that is canvassed on a regular basis. I'll just give you a simple example. Right now, there is a hiring freeze across government. But that cannot be a full-fledged, no exceptions hiring freeze, because there are certain jobs that just have to be done. If we do not pick up the trash, there will be a public health crisis on our hands. We have to pick up the trash. If we do not have pilots to go out on the seas to assist a ship that is in distress, we will lose lives. If we do not have a maritime operations controller sitting at harbor radio, scanning the seas for people at distress, we will lose lives. If we do not have someone drafting legislation, there can be no change to legislation and our regulations. So there are certain jobs that just have to be done. What that magic number is, we've been struggling to find that over a period of time. But I can say this, at the number that we are at, 4,500, it is a pressure on those who remain to do all the work that we have to do. Some might think it's a very large government, but it is. We are effectively not just a little town with a little village to get little things done. We are in effect a national government with national and international responsibilities, and we have to fulfill those. If we were a part of a larger governmental structure, then we may not need to have all of those persons, because the larger structure can swallow up some of the responsibilities that we have. But we have to be the local government, the national government, and the international government. And so all of that takes people to do work. So we absolutely would love to get that number down to something that works. But where we are now, it'll be very difficult to get all the work done with a lower number. We could have a lower number if we collectively make a decision to provide less services. But that is a political decision to be made. The public service will respond to that political decision, but in effect, that will be the way to reduce that number, is by reducing the level and the number and range of services provided to the public.
All righty. Couple more questions. I know we've got to wrap it up. Tamara Richardson says, have any comparisons been done to ascertain number of public officers employed in similar jurisdictions or places with similar operating budgets?
Yes, we've been under a number of reviews, particularly by the UK Civil Service, who have a broad view of other overseas territories. And we have compared our structure to their structures. There are some differences, but we have enough in common, and we are really not out of the norm for other small island territorial. We're not quite a nation, but we have international responsibilities. But for other territories like us, we are not out of the norm, given the size of our population and the breadth of and scope of services that we provide to our population.
All right, and final question, Dr. Binns. We have Joanne Smith. How are you dealing with the stress levels of those taking on extra roles?
Well, those taking on extra roles, I would also add to that the stress levels caused because of the extra work that is being done in response to the pandemic. It's very difficult. We are having a very difficult time managing that. The reality is we have had people who have literally collapsed. We have had people who have been hospitalized because of the press of work. But some are saying, I'm playing violins here, but the public officers are dedicated to what they do. And they've been working flat out, and the Ministry of Health in particular, since January. We talk about the pandemic since about March, but they were preparing for it from about January and going nonstop. So the stress levels are intense, and there's tremendous pressure to deliver services such as the unemployment benefit and other new services that come about as a response to the pandemic that have put tremendous pressure on the public officers. The need to be able to create new tools to get people to get a pre-authorized vaccine test before. I'm sorry, not a vaccine test. A COVID test before they come to Bermuda. The ability for people to do things more online now rather than having to come into the office. Tremendous pressures placed on us. What are we doing about that? Well, we do have a wellness committee that's in place that we are putting out information to help our public officers understand the importance of taking a break, getting away from it. We're encouraging people, even though not many are traveling now, to still take vacation, even in Bermuda, to take some time off. We've included programs such as the one we're doing now is called Move Spring. We're encouraging people to focus on their health. Last year, we did something called the Global Challenge to help people focus on their health. We found tremendous uptake with that. So we are trying to create a balance as much as we can. But the reality is, this is an exceptionally stressful time for public officers, and we are seeing it take its toll. And we will see it not only in people basically just collapsing, as I said, but I would anticipate we're going to see increases in healthcare insurance claims as well because of the stress that it's taking on all of us.
Dr. Derrick Binns, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. It's been very helpful. And please know if you ever need our platform to communicate any messaging to our audience, you are more than welcome. So thanks again.
I appreciate that invitation. Thank you for having me, and I'll take you up on that offer. Thank you very much.
All right. Sounds good. Have a great one.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care.
All right, Dr. Derrick Binns, the head of the civil service in public service. Sorry, got to get used to saying that, public service in Bermuda. I want to touch on something that Dr. Binns said. I actually had a COVID test yesterday, and what are you laughing at, Carla? You had the poke before?
I've administered it twice. I've never had it done myself.
Oh, you haven't had it? I thought you had it. Yeah, I got my COVID test yesterday, and it was a very tickly feeling. I didn't enjoy it, honestly. I didn't enjoy it. It was a very tickly feeling. But I will say this here. I am not opposed to I've never really been opposed to getting the COVID test, but I can understand why people are reluctant. Yeah, I don't something going up your nose is not no. I don't even like here's the best example I can give you. You know how when Carla jumps over and she goes swimming and she blocks her nose, folks? That's I don't block my nose.
I should be okay then when I got mine done.
Well, I mean, just don't hold your nose when they're trying to put something up there, Carla.
But do you because I know they do it different in different places. Did you have to put it in your mouth first and then your nose?
No.
Did they do that? They scrape your tonsils and then they do your nostrils?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
They
See,
just did
people do
both
it differently.
nostrils. Yeah.
Oh, both nostrils.
Yeah, they did both
So you
nostrils.
heard they actually it's 5 points in the mouth and then up in the nose, one nostril.
Yeah, they did both nostrils. But I'm yeah, it was I'm glad it's over. Real quickly, before we get to the daily play, the debate last night was quite fascinating. Grumpy old men arguing. The current president done his best to control his temperament, but I just feel, I always say I feel for Bermuda tourism, but I feel for the American people that these are the two choices. But I think Donald Trump as president gives me hope. He gives me hope that I can be anything I believe that I can be.
Real quick, did you hear the one thing his advisors told him not to do? He did it last night.
Which was what?
Not to diss Dr. Fauci. How you pronounce his last name?
Fauci, yeah.
Fauci. And he did it.
Well, I mean, advisors, he's uncontrollable. You're not going to tell him what to do. But anyway, folks, Carla's going to need your help real quickly. She's going to need your help. She needs you to help her. And you all haven't done a good job of this lately. I'm going to just call you out on this. She needs your help figuring out where this is in Bermuda. And this is a toughie, folks. This is a toughie. Are you ready, Carla?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, that didn't sound confident at all. Here we go.
All right.
let us know where this is in Bermuda.
Oh, I know where that is. That is in St. George's, down the in St. George's, on the corner by where the cows are. It's a little beach down there.
And what's it called, Carla?
I want to say it's not black something. I had a few full 100 days there.
Ooh.
No, seriously, I don't know what it's called, but I know exactly where it is.
Somebody must be from St. George's.
See, it weren't that hard for me. I just didn't know what it was called, but I've been there a few times.
My goodness, you've just ruined a lot of people's beach day out, man. Gee. Drews Bay. We have someone that helped Carla get it today. So Drews Bay, that is it was just a nice place. It's a nice little hidden spot, not for Carla's reasons necessarily, folks.
But aren't you proud of me? I knew where it was. I didn't know the name, but
yes, I am. I thought that would have been a difficult one since you couldn't get last week's one. Look, everyone got it. Look,
it was out in the open.
nasty one.
I'm joking.
No, it's just not, folks. Just not joking. Oh my goodness.
No, you know what? When I used to take the children for drives, and I just look for different places because interesting. I never explored the East as a young person.
Really?
I never went. It's beautiful. I never went east, and one day we just packed up, and I was like, "Come on, let's find a new place to go swimming." Found that, even have pictures there.
You know what your problem is? You never had a boyfriend from the East. You needed a boyfriend from the East. Yeah, I had a little girlfriend down in the East back in the day, so I appreciated all the beauty that you brought.
I say nothing. Okay.
Real quickly before we get to the quote of the day and send you off for the weekend, let's get a roll call. We haven't done a roll call in a while. Where's everyone tuned in from? Where you tuned in from? What's going on? Where you at? Let us know what's happening. I know we have some people. Don't just say Bermuda. You know how it goes. Let us know where you're tuned in from in Bermuda. And don't forget, while we're at it, Delray Rollins, one of Bermuda's top cricketers, will be on Pure Sports Radio with Larry Marshall Jr. on Sunday evening. So he's just finished a fantastic season over in the UK with Sussex, and expecting big things from him in the years to come. So yeah, Delray, man, that's some talent there, man. I could only dream of being. Well, you know what, Carla? Maybe we should have, because we're gonna have a tennis match. We should have a cricket match as well. Daily Hour team.
Yeah, I did that once remember they used to do the
celebrity thing.
Yeah, I did that once.
Oh, you're no good.
That ball's too hard.
Oh my goodness, you're such a weaker.
All right, ball, but you have a glove. That ball is too hard and scary. Nope.
Scared of hard balls. Okay. We've got Amanda Kelly in Atlanta. Quinell Francis said, how did I guess St. George's? You got the answer. You gave it a name. We've got Evelyn Pitt in the UK. Hedeline Stevenson Swan in Devonshire. Sean Smith over there in Portugal. Delaware. I said Delaware. Delaware, foggy morning. Renita's out there. Well, hope it's warm there today. St. George's in the house. Nottingham, the UK. God's country. I'm guessing that's St. George's. Nassau County, New York. Of course, it can't be Somerset. Charles Jeffers in Paget, Bermuda. Oh, right. Charles is visiting Bermuda right now. Bermuda is lucky to have Charles here. White Hill, that's up there. Now, is White Hill in Somerset or not MP famous? Let us know. Pembroke, Nana Pam, Smith's Parish, Hamilton Parish. We've got a lot. We enjoy you too, and thank you for putting up with Carla. She ain't easy, folks. Voted runner-up as Sussex Young Player of the Year, Delray Rollins. So make sure you tune in. Carla, what's the quote you got for our sister?
To give real service, you must add something which cannot be bought or measured with money. Let me start that over. To give real service, you must add something which cannot be bought or measured with money, and that is sincerity and integrity. Douglas Adams.
We appreciate that. Any final words before we let everyone go off for the weekend, Carla?
Have a great weekend, everyone. Be kind. And I just want to give a little shout out to Vanessa Paulus. Tell your mom, Zelia, I said hi. Thanks.
Your mom who?
Her mom, Zelia.
Oh, okay.
You missed that wrong, yeah. She got me. She heard me.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, folks. Honestly, back at town here, Southampton, Warwick, Church Street, Hamilton. Sounds like someone's at work. God's country equals something. Oh, sorry to hear that. Look, she said, "Will do, Carla." Look, folks, if you haven't already, download the app. Full 100 Radio. It's available on the Apple and Android devices. Join Juggling Jason in about an hour. Get your weekend started. And make sure you tune in to Delray Rollins, one of Bermuda's youngest upcoming stars. Last week, we had the phenomenal young lady, Leilani Nesbitt. On that note, though, unfortunately, I know, another week has come to an end, and we're going to see you take 2 days off, give you a break. But we still appreciate you. We love you. And we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you next week. More great shows and conversations. All right. Until then, Carla.
Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House. All recorded episodes and highlights can be found at thedailyhour.com. Stay connected with us by following us at The Daily Hour on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.